Welcome everybody, this is Fritzy. This video is, there's a story to this video. I need to make amends. I think I made a comment in a Facebook group that featured a box like this. And I think I unintentionally put my foot in my mouth. So this is my way to say, well, on one hand, to say I'm sorry if somebody felt offended by my remark, which might have come over a bit derogatory, which it was totally not meant. It was totally not meant derogatorily or kind of like snotty or arrogant or anything. So if it was perceived like that, I'm very sorry. It was not my intention. I stated that because somebody said they can't get their hands on the really great new box board that Memory Keepers has launched. She said she was in England and she couldn't get her hands on it for whatever reasons, because with the pandemic, shipping ways are longer than they used to be. Shipping is disastrous right now. I have made the I realized that too, because I had things shipped in that just did not arrive. I had Christmas packages that did not even leave my country to go to the States. They came back in mid-January and stuff like that. So for whatever reason, people are not able to get their hands on the board, or they don't have the funds, they don't have the room, they don't have... There's many reasons why people would buy the board, and as many reasons people won't buy it. I saw it, I was excited about it, and then I watched the video and I was going like, yeah, I made a box like this once in my life and it was so much work. I decided I would probably never ever make one again, so this is a huge apology. And I realized the board was just a tool to help me, but not to actually avoid the work that goes into one of those boxes. So I decided the 3 boxes I would probably make like this in my crafting life going forward would, for me personally, not be worth buying the board, because I have reached a point in my craft life where I'm destashing. I am really reconsidering what I'm using, what I'm not using, and I have so much stuff that needs to leave my craft room for me to be able to enjoy it again, that I'm really consciously deciding which bandwagon I'm getting on, and I decided the box board was not one I would get on. So for anybody who decides to get the board, congratulations. It's a great tool, and it makes it, I don't know if it makes it easier, but it makes it even more of a no-brainer. So go ahead, enjoy the hell out of it, and make your boxes and show them and make everybody, you know, ooh and ah, perfect. For those who cannot get your hands on the board for whatever reason, self-decided or factual, there is an not really difficult way to make this box without the amazing board, with tools as little and as non-crafty as a straight edge and an old knitting needle. So let me show you what this box is about. I have not embellished it yet. I have not put paper on it. It's the bare box for you to check out. And the term, it's not rocket science, to get back to the reason why I'm making this video, in my family, is when we actually encourage our kids to search for a solution. Maybe a solution that isn't the obvious, which would be the board, but to make them find ways probably around it, and to realize they can do it just as any one of us can do this box, with or without the board. So once you take off the lid, this is your box. It's the average Jane explosion box. Everybody knows it, probably really everybody has made. It's just that it's, in my case, 6 different sizes stacked together with the corner squares cut into hearts. I replicated what the board makes to show you the board is a great tool to help you, but it's not, you're not excluded from making a box like this if you cannot get your hands on the box. I have 6 layers because honestly I have lost my smallest, oh, I just found it, my smallest square. You can make this box any size you want. You can make this box with the numbers of layers you want and need, depending on what your project is for. If you want, you know, put an engagement ring in here, something. I mean, you know, I know people who sell boxes like this for people, for guys. Actually, they have a lot of guys buying those to put a ring box in the middle for their, you know, for proposing, whatever. So without much further ado, let's hop into the tutorial. I hope you enjoy it. If you're interested in stuff like this, maybe even if my channel is mostly in German, there's a couple of videos that I dubbed. There's a couple of videos, especially paper engineering videos, that I actually made bilingually, or a version each. So, and if you have something you would like to see in English, let me know. Otherwise, just, you know, use the subtitle function with YouTube. I would love to have you as subscribers. Yeah, give me a shout out. I hope you like what you see, and again, apologies if anybody got offended by my remark about the not being rocket science. It was not meant in any way to offend people or, you know, imply that somebody wasn't capable of doing this. Not at all, quite the opposite actually. So yeah, bear with me. I hope you have fun with the tutorial, and let's get started. So let's get into it. I have used 5 sheets of 12 by 12 paper, which in my case is like a medium weight. I would say it's about 110 pound. You can use cover stock. You can use really heavy cover stock, which makes the box a lot more sturdy. But if you plan to mat it with pattern paper and pictures, that's not really necessary. Plus, the thicker your card is, the more risk you're running that your fold lines, your score lines might break. So I think the 110 pound cover stock, which equals like 220 grams, is pretty good. And because I will mat mine with paper and probably pictures, so this suited me perfectly. What else you will need is either a paper trimmer that has a score blade, or if not, just use your regular stylus, your embossing stylus with it, or a scoreboard in addition, which makes it a lot, well, probably not even easier. So these are the 2 tools, including the stylus, that either of which is basically all you need. As I said, 5 pieces of cardstock will do the trick, because after cutting down to the 6 by 6 part, you can reuse your scraps for the smaller squares. My squares are 3 by 3, 4.5 in size, 6. You'll need 2 of these because you want a lid, which I put aside now. 7.5, 9, 10.5, and 12. So your margin goes down 1.5 inches from sheet size to sheet size. So you start out with a full sheet, cut off 1.5 inches on two sides, cut off 3 inches, which you can reuse for the smallest size. I hope you can see this because it's white and white. This comes out of 12 inches. Next size would be 7.5, which then gives you 4.5, and the 6x6 with the lid. So you have a couple of scraps left you can reuse. Procedure is pretty much the same for all the pages. I'll show you the largest, the medium, and the smallest. Basically what you do is you score your sheet no matter what size you are working with at this moment into 3 equal parts. You can go ahead and say, okay, 12 inches, so a third is 4. You can either go score at 4 and at 8. If you're not sure about if this is how you want to work, you can always go ahead and just score at 4, turn 90 degree, score at 4 again, turn again, score at 4, turn again, and proceed like this for all your sheets of paper. Next is 10.5. A third would be 3.5, and you recognize it's 1/2 inch down from the size before. You could go 1/4 inch, which then would lead to a different measurement for the next size sheet, but I decided to work with 1/2 inch increments. So this time we score at 3.5 and 7, or 3.5, 3.5, 3.5, 3.5. Which will leave you with 3.5 inch squares. So going through all of them will bring you down to the 3 inch square, which naturally is 1 and 2 inch, and 1 and 2 inches, which is really, really, really tiny. You don't have to go that tiny, but I wanted to show that you can make whatever size, however many inlays or stations in this box, however many you want. The one shown that triggered the initial issue about needing the board or not was one that was, I think, going down in 1/2 inch increments, because that's basically what the board does or gives you. So that is what I wanted to show you. I'll just go ahead and score the rest of my sheets, and then I'm going to show you how you can do the corners and the lid. Give me a second and I'll be back in a minute. Now I've done my my base pages that I will stack into each other, and we're back with the lid. The lid is cut from one of the scraps from the 6x6 size square. So this is like the other half. We want our lid to be marginally bigger than the 4 inches my biggest box is. So usually if I have a box that has an extra piece of paper for the lid, I go ahead and cut the lid a tiny smidgen bigger than the 6x6, and then go around and just score it at whatever size I want my sides to be. In this case, using a scrap from my leftovers, I can't do that. I have 6x6 inches and that's it. So what I do to get like a marginally bigger lid than the base box is I move over my paper by a hair. It's not even a 16th. It's not even that. It's, if you're working decimal, it's probably a millimeter. It's a 32nd of an inch. It's like half of a 16th, something like that. Knowing my base box is 4 inches, I have 1 inch on any side to score for the lid, which now will be 15, not even 15/16. It's going to be 31/32. This time, no matter what I do, I turn my paper just to be able to score at that smidgen less than an inch. I butt up against my side panel and then move over. You might be able to see that it's just, you know, like just really a tiny hair's bit further to the right of the 6 inches. Hardly visible. And then I go ahead and score all my pieces. If you don't have a scoreboard or trimmer and you don't want to go to the expense, or you can't go to the expense, which is totally fine, and a hobby is something, you know, a lot of people want to rather invest in, I don't know, their stash instead of tools, which is perfectly fine. Or a lot of people do need to make a decision on what to invest in. You can totally do this with a straight edge and a knitting needle. Totally. Or if you are still waiting for your tools to come in or something and you want to do this now, you can totally do this with a straight edge and that set knitting needle, or an old pen, roller pen, or an old, you know, big pen that doesn't write anymore. Just make sure it really doesn't write anymore. Or get, you know, from the dollar store, one of those nail styluses that has like a ball at the end, or any tool, even just a paper, like a bone folder, which is like the most basic and essential tool I would recommend for any and all paper crafters. That's the end all of things. I would not, you know, even if I'm just now scoring my stuff without one, I would not be able to do paper crafts without a bone folder. I think it's the first tool that ever moved in with me, but for probably scissors. And it's going to be the last to go ever, because there's so many things you can do with it, and there's so many uses. And nice thing about those scoreboards is that if you put your paper in them correctly and your papers are cut straight, your folds are pretty surely straight. I mean, I've botched them up at times nonetheless, but I mean, there's those days, right? So yeah, I'm sorry for the noise, but it's paper. So that's basically our box. Let me get this sorted in the right sizes. Okay, so this is basically the base of the box. What you need to decide on now is how you want to design the, let me see which is the best size to work with on screen, probably this one. What you need to decide on now is how you want to use your corners, or if you want to cut them off entirely, if you only want the sides, if you want to make them into pockets, if you want to make them, if you just want to cut them and score them and have them as a stabilizer for your pages, or if, as in the project that triggered this video, you want to make your corners into a heart shape, which is what the stencil that comes with the board enables it to. There is the stencil coming with the board. What I want to show you is how I approached the heart situation. I used one of my leftover scrap papers and cut a 4x4 inch square, because that is the biggest size my squares for my outest layer are. So this would be the biggest I have to go with my heart. I scored that down at a diagonal from one point to the other and folded it. If you're my age group, which is like just below 50, you will probably, I don't know, I remember, so a lot of us will remember having made those paper hearts and origami hearts in kindergarten, way back, or in school, or with your own kids, whatever. That's the first thing you show them in paper crafting, is how basically to cut a heart, right? So what I did is I marked my increments, my box increments, and just, you know, put in my lines so I know where to go, and then started marking how I wanted my heart to look. I started with the outest one, and this is just to show you how you would proceed even to the smallest, down to the smallest, if you wanted them to all be hearts. And you would start with the biggest one, cut it. You can use heart dies as a stencil, or any kind of heart you already have on hand that you like, or whatever. Just try if this is something, if this is the form, the shape you would like. As you can see, I'm correcting mine because it's not really, after all, what I want it to look like. Okay, this is better. So this is what I end up with, and then I go ahead and just trace my heart with a pencil. Onto my corner squares. which then I can cut out. And if you're putting pattern paper on your corners too, you will want to make sure you have the pattern paper you want to put on each size marked before you go down to the next size, because for going down to the next size you just cut out your next heart. If you intend to make more of those boxes, I strongly recommend making individual stencils for each size so you can always go back, because I mean cutting them down each time is kind of okay, not really economical. What you want to do next is either go back to your scoreboard, which is kind of awkward because you will not fit the diagonal 12 by 12 paper into your scoreboard. So what I do is I actually take a straight edge, use my ball tool, and just use my straight edge to go diagonal, because you want to stop at this cross here, at this intersection of lines. You do not want to cross down the base of your box. So you do that going around and around and around, and then you can go ahead and fold in your corner square, which isn't that easy because your middle square will stay flat. And this is basically how your box will fold up later. I'm sorry for the shadow, it's just the artificial light in winter. It's a bugger. I don't have a ring light yet. So this is how your box folds up. Let me show you how to make, I'm just trying to consider if I want to make one of my inner boxes with a pocket or not. Not this time, but I'll show you how to do a pocket with one of my scraps, because I want this one to be all hearts. So let me show you. Okay, so imagine this is your 2.5 by 2.5 square, or your, excuse me, your 7.5 by 7.5 square, and you want to make a pocket. So you have, oops, sorry, that was me, typical. So you have your 3 squares on one side that could fold in. You can go ahead now, and for one, cut in to the middle on one side. Go ahead, cut one off with like a 1/2 inch glue tab, and glue this shut. Use a circle punch or whatever you have to make a thumb hole, and that would be this would be the 7.5. This is how you end up. You cut up one of the sides to the middle and fold over into pocket. Making pockets will result in only being able to use, like, you can't have 4 closed pockets because you only have Well, you could, but then you wouldn't have a glue tab and your pocket wouldn't be full size. This is one option to make a pocket. Other option would be to cut in one side, like windmill, fold over only once, like this, glue shut here, and have 4 pockets. Results in only being able to use like this much of the pocket. Is this conclusive? It's kind of like, okay. Next version of a pocket would be to make a diagonal cut either on one or another side, on one or both sides. One would be like this, and you get like a tag pocket. You can put stuff in here, or you get the second one, the second side, to glue like a crossover, which would make like a top loading pocket. That's the pocket versions you can get from your corner squares. As I said, I decided to make one with hearts only. So, and you can always use your scraps to actually glue on pockets if you want to. That's probably something I would consider this time. Now let me go ahead and just cut out all my hearts, and I'm gonna be back with how to assemble the box. Okay, so here we are. I have scored and cut all my different layers. I'm just double checking that I actually have erased all my marks, which I have obviously not. And somewhere along the way, I think I lost my 1-inch square. So my 3-inch square to make the 1-inch the last step, but I think I'm good that way. So what I ended up with is these, in my case, 6 layers of staircase boxes if you want. These need to be adhered through or at the bottom now, which I will do as follows. You can go ahead and mark your 1/2 inch here if you don't feel confident doing it eyeballing it, which is pretty easy because you need to have like a 1/2 inch around each, a 1/2 inch border to the next step, and a 1/4 here. So it's 1/2 inch in and 1/4 inch down, 1/2 inch down, 1/4 inch in. So let's go ahead and get this glued. Easiest way to center it is to actually have your diagonal folds in the hearts line up. You can go ahead and make like a guide, which is kind of superfluous if you use the diagonals to get your next layer centered. I am the biggest advocate for liquid glue because, sorry, I just had somebody come in. I have had so many projects come apart after a couple of years because the glue dried out that I will use like a glue, like a tape runner, for anything that is not supposed to last very long. But with everything I want to actually keep holding up, I'm done with anything but wet glue. It's just it gets chemically bonded, and it's just, I am assembling this as a demo now, because if I was working on like if I wanted to finish the project, I would go ahead and probably put down my pattern paper first, but that would absolutely take way too long. So I am putting this together before putting down the design paper, the pattern paper, so I can actually show it to you better. I decided to go ahead and actually put the glue on the existing box already, because if I have to move my, sorry, I did not erase all my hearts. If I had to, or if I was shoving my upper layer back and forth and had the glue on that one, I would run the risk of actually, you know, getting glue on in places where I didn't want it, which would be okay with a lot of glues, but not the Tombow, because that actually stays sticky when drying. So you don't want to have that stuff anywhere where you don't want it. So get some wiggly space. Now, if you wanted to go overboard, honestly, you could totally go in 1/4 inch increments or whatever. If you work in metric, you could go with centimeter increments. I think this is pretty neat, and to be honest, board or not, it's a labor of love, because it takes forever to cut out all those hearts. So the pocket option really is the more time economic one. So let's fold this up, have a look-see. Hearts into hearts. Yee. This is coming together real nicely. It's a great Valentine's project. It's a great gift project for a wedding. It's oops, I haven't folded these. But it is, let me tell you again, a labor of love, because it's a lot of work either way. So even if you have the board's guiding you, but you still have to do the work. So this is the box. I'm gonna make the lid in a second. This is how it's going to look. Take the lid off, and it's gonna be folding out like this. I haven't decided on paper yet, so. And every time I cut down my heart template, which is like, in the end, I ended up with this from the 4-inch square. Every time I cut it down, I traced it to have a template for my pattern paper, because I haven't cut that yet. If you're cutting that in the same process, you're cutting your box parts, you don't need the pattern. But I didn't, so I needed the tracing guide. Our folded lid is going to go together like this. I like to go around clockwise or counterclockwise, always cutting the same pattern, because I don't want to favor any particular side. Lids I usually totally do flat or matte flat because I hate doing them made up, but just for demo purposes, I'm going to assemble that now. I mean, you all know how to assemble the lid, right? So you might actually have a little of an overhang with the flaps, depending on how scrupulous you are in moving over that 32nd of an inch. So if you need to, just snip it off a little, which is like always yucky when you already glued it together, but best to do it from the inside. Okay. So this is our lid. Let's get the box together. Only nice thing with the nice thing with the hearts, you can pull in the hearts to hold the box together. And then we're closing the lid. And ta-da! This is your box. Entirely without a specific board. As I said, you could perfectly make this just with a straight edge and whatever scoring tool you have at hand. I hope this video has been helping those who either can't get their hands on the board or can't spend the money or don't have the room or whatever. It's just to show you can do it. It's not rocket science. I hope to see you soon with probably another English video or a dub one. If you liked what you saw, maybe you consider subscribing. I would be totally thrilled. And see you next time around.